It is Thursday. Good morning. How you doing today? How's your day starting? Do you start your coffee already? Is it going? You ready to go? Do you use creamer or no creamer? Do you use half and half? What do you use? I don't know. I like mine a little bit, a little bit of something in there. Kind of gives it, not a lot, not too much sugar, but just something. It helps. And a spoonful of something helps the coffee go down, right? Something like that. Well, anyways, enough joking around. We're in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, and we are considering what Paul said. The people were gravitating toward Paul and Apollos, and they were trying to find their favorite teacher. And Paul said, hey, listen, just so you know, we're just workers. In fact, we're actually servants, and we are stewards of what the Lord has entrusted to us. And Paul says concerning being a servant and being a steward, there's one thing that is really, really important. And that's found in the very next verse. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2. He says, moreover, it is required in stewards that one be found faithful. Oh, wow, that's so important. Sometimes we struggle with being faithful to something. Well, this is hard. I'm tired of it, so I'm going to stop being faithful. Hey, listen, if you're going to be a steward of what belongs to the Lord, then it's required. It comes with the job. It's part of the description to be found faithful. What does it mean to be faithful? When I think of faithfulness, I think of consistency. I think of commitment. I think of endurance. The word perseverance comes to mind. It's not always easy to be faithful. Sometimes your faithfulness to something will be challenged. Maybe it's easier to be faithful in some things that you enjoy doing, and maybe it's not easy to be faithful in other things that aren't as enjoyable. That's not really the issue. The issue is, what has God entrusted to me, and am I being faithful with what He has given me? There have been seasons in my life as a Christian, as a minister, where it's been hard to be faithful to what the Lord called me to do. And part of the reason for the difficulty in the area of faithfulness is that I wasn't seeing the fruit of my faithfulness. I wasn't seeing anything really being produced. I was just doing the labor, but I really wasn't seeing the growth. And that's when it can become difficult. That's when your faithfulness and your commitment can really be tested. I remember being a young minister and planting a church for the first time at the age of 25, just fresh 25, and not knowing anybody in the area where we had moved, nobody knowing us. We knew one other family really, and not well. And how do you even start a church? How do you even do that? And this was, again, let me say to you, this was before there was an internet. You're like, there was a time when there was, yes. Some of you older folks, you remember, there wasn't anything like that. Websites, that was so new, cell phones even, my goodness, can you imagine? Social media, not even a thing. How's this church going to get off the ground? How are people going to hear about it? What, do you put something in the paper? Do people even read that? You put something in the phone book. That's how we got it out there, in the phone book. I remember when we were planning the church and we were trying to plant it, that we put our listing in the phone book, but we didn't have any money. So all we could do was one line. And so it was supposed to be Calvary Chapel, Brandon. We paid for one line with our phone book. Like, you'd have to go through the area of churches and find, oh, Calvary Chapel, there is one here, and it's in Brandon. Guess what? They spelled Calvary wrong. How do you like that? We paid for it. They spelled it wrong. The phone book's out. It lasts until the next one comes out. Oh man, it was even more impossible than that. And I used to walk with the Lord, take walks with the Lord. We had these man-made lakes by the place where we were living. And I would just walk with the Lord and cry out to Him and say, God, please do something in this town. God, please, would you, I don't even know what to do. Just pleading with God. And those were the days when it was really hard to be faithful. I remember one day in particular when I was pastoring that my wife had made these signs that we would post, to tell people where our church was. Now you have to understand, this was an area where there were tons of churches everywhere, big churches, been there for 100 years. Like, how are you going to compete? Not that we were competing, but why would anybody want to come hear me with 3 other people in a living room? I mean, that sounds like a cult, Who's gonna? And you're from California. Oh my goodness, you're definitely a cult. I mean, people didn't know what to think of us. I didn't know what to think of me. But anyway, I remember one Sunday, my wife had made this sign, and it said Calvary Chapel, and it pointed in a certain direction where we were meeting at a coffee shop with 2 other families. And I put it up on this telephone pole, like stapled it to the telephone pole. Like, let me just say this to you. Would you go to a church that had a man-made sign or a personal sign made out of markers pointing to a church? Would you go to that? Like, I wouldn't. I'd be like, well, that's kind of weird. Anyways, long story short, I met with the couples there in this coffee shop, and I did a Bible study for 6 people. And when it was over, my wife had spent so much time on that sign. She was a cheerleader, so, they make great signs. I thought, well, we should probably go collect the sign. And it had rained during the time that we had our meeting. And so the sign had fallen off of the pole into the gutter, right next to it, on the curb, next to the curb in the gutter. And the markers are kind of like smeared and washed. So it basically ruined the sign. I remember going to pick up the sign and hearing the devil whisper in my ear, that's what your ministry is like. It's washed up. You're never going to do anything in this town. You might as well just pack it up. And I mean just as clear a discouragement as you could hear in your ear. It was right there in my face. And I thought, yeah, he's probably right. But I say that to you only to say those are the moments when faithfulness really becomes a test. Am I going to keep doing this? How about this? What if it never changes? Did God call me here? Did God ask me to do this? What if nobody ever comes? What if it never gets off the ground? What if I'm just here and nothing ever happens, and I brought my family out here and we don't survive, and then what? Oh, that's where the steward has to be found faithful. Is your life being tested? Is your faithfulness becoming difficult? Are you being challenged? What are you going to do? Here's the option. Remain faithful. Remain faithful. Keep doing what God's called you to do until he tells you to do something else. And trust him that even though you don't see the fruit yet, it's coming in due season. You just got to keep watering, keep sowing, keep planting, and keep praying. Rain will come. Harvest will come. Stay faithful. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.